Good morning. This is Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can get more information, listen to previous shows at our website, which is behind me, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce award-winning singer, songwriter, and music producer John Michaels for being my guest today. John, welcome on board.
Hey, thanks for having me, Blaine. I appreciate it.
Okay, and can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this?
Hey guys, it's John. Good.
That's John.
Thanks for tuning
Uh,
in.
Great. And I should mention, John has been called the Jim Croce of the 21st century with his uh, music, well-tuned six-string guitar, and amazing vocal talent. Having toured with the New Christian Minstrels, John writes songs and music that Chicken Soup for the Soul co-author Jack Canfield proclaims as Chicken Soup for My Soul that spread light, joy, and fun. In addition to writing and producing and singing, John is an executive producer for many PBS award-winning documentaries. And so the first question I ask John when I meet somebody on the air is, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in Southern California, Los Angeles, North Hollywood, and Glendale in the San Fernando Valley, and that's where I was born and raised and lived until I was right around 30 years old.
And did you know as a kid growing up that you wanted to be a musician?
No, but I did get an early start. I started playing guitar when I was about 10. My sister Lori had taught me several chords on the guitar, and so did my brother Billy. So it was something that I obviously developed a passion for at a very early age. And through time, it really became my raison d'etre, which is a really cool word, meaning my reason to be. And so, yes, it's been a passion I have followed my whole life.
When did you have your first guitar?
Gosh, my first guitar, well, the first thing that comes to my mind was I was 15 years old and I was working at a Taco Bell. And I worked at a Taco Bell all summer long. And I then took the money that I had saved from working and I went down to a store in Santa Monica called McCabe's, which is very famous. And I bought an Ibanez acoustic. I probably paid $150, $200, but it took a long time to save that back then. And I had that guitar for many, many, many years. It was great.
Do
So
we
that
still
was my
have the
first.
guitar?
No, I sold it. I sold it to a friend of mine named Cameron, and I haven't seen it in a long time. But yeah, it's somewhere, but it's not in my hands,
So
unfortunately.
talk about that. So you started playing guitar at a certain age. When did you start writing songs? How old were you when you wrote your first song?
Gosh, I think I was around 10 years old. I wrote a song called Black Cat, and it was about this kid that was being ostracized, if you will, back then, and just kind of being picked on. And I used the word black cat as a euphemism, but it was back then. It was I was around 10 that I just started writing, and that was what it just came to me, and I just started doing it.
Were you the kid being picked on?
No, no, I wasn't the kid being picked on. I was the kind of kid that always jumped in to defend the kids that were being picked on. I don't know why I did that, but I did that on several occasions. Now that I remember, it wasn't a good thing for me to do, but I did.
Do you have a recording of that song somewhere?
No, no, no. That was when I was 10, and if I did, I would have burned it. Uh, but no, I've written many, many, many songs. I've probably written well over a couple hundred songs in my lifetime so far, which and some people write 4,000. I know guys that have written 4,000 songs. I've written a couple hundred.
Nice guy that I am, I'm not going to ask you to sing that song then, but maybe in the future, that very first the Black Cat song. So you wrote a couple of hundred songs. When was the first time you ever got paid to sing?
The very first time I got paid for singing.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I mean, I had gigs in LA where I would get paid uh, to do little, gigs at clubs, restaurants, things like that. And
I mean,
But
as
I
a
was
kid, were you in a band with a kid?
not as a kid. I mean, I started having my band when I was about 20 years old, and I formed the John Michaels Band. And the thing about the band that I formed was it was an original band. I was trying to get signed. I was trying to get a record deal. And you don't really get a record deal doing top 40 gigs. So I was out playing all these clubs, whether it was Madame Wong's or Central or some of the well-known clubs in Los Angeles. And it was me trying to, sell myself and my songs and things of that nature. But I started when I was about 20 doing that.
And so, do you remember the first gig you ever had?
The first hit,
No, the first gig that you
oh, the
got paid
first
for.
gig, the first gig. Uh, no, I really don't. I mean, like I said, I mean, there were some gigs that I did solo where I would play like 2 or 3 hours at a restaurant. And, I was 17 or 18, 19. I absolutely do remember. There was a very famous restaurant in Los Angeles called the Great American Food and Beverage Company. And I worked there. That it would be my very first paid gig. And I was a singing waiter. And we would wait tables and bus tables. And then when you had a free moment, you jump up on stage and you did, John Denver song or Bob Seger or whatever it was, and then you go back and wait on tables and do all of that, and we'd sing at the tables, and we'd all do goofy stuff, and so I would say that was my very first paid gig doing that, and you had to audition to get the job, and I got the audition, so it was a really fun gig.
And how old were you then?
I was 17 or 18. I lied. I said I was 21 and I was 17 and I got busted. I remember I worked there for about 2 months and then finally my manager came over to me and he said, "Hey, let me see your license." And I said, "Well, I don't have it." He goes, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 21." He goes, "Let me see." And he knew I was lying and well, I was fired pretty much right then and there because, I was like bringing drinks to people's tables and things at 17. Shame on me. Shame, shame, shame.
So you had to be what? You had to be 21 to be a waiter, supposedly.
Well, if you're going to be in and around alcohol and serving and things of that nature, and I was 17, I wasn't even an adult yet, so I got fired because I lied on my application.
You told me off the air too. I'm going to ask you to recreate another story that I really liked about, I guess, the first time you performed where you were recognized by other people. I think what was you were in a talent contest. There's a great story you told that you had that song when you were a kid.
The one about where the girl wanted to have lunch with me or
No,
after the high school.
what the high school. Tell about that story. It's
Well,
a great
yes,
story.
I wrote a song. I wrote a song called "I'm Gonna Miss You," and I real quick, I'll tell the story because this is in high school, kids can be brutal. Your peers can be absolutely brutal. And there was a talent show in 10th grade at North Hollywood High School, and I entered it, and I was going to be the lead off um, the performer of the talent show. And it was right after lunch. I'll never forget this. And I mean, my heart was pounding out of my chest. I was sweating. I was so nervous. I couldn't sleep for a week thinking that I was going to be doing this. So it was lunchtime and I made my way to the auditorium, got there. And the way that they decided to set it up there was a stool in the middle of the stage and a guitar leaning against the stool, which was my guitar. And so all of the kids were filing in. This was an assembly, and the entire school is there. And the lights went down, and ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John. And I walk out, and I start hearing these cat calls from all my friends. And one of my nicknames back then was Frog Eyes. I always, my head eventually grew into my eyes, but my eyes protruding. And I remember as pulling the guitar and I'm getting ready and I'm hearing, "Hey, Frog Eyes, let's hear what you can do." And I started to play and the guitar got really out of tune for some reason. And I had to stop and I'm going and I'm trying to tune it and I'm just shaking and everybody's going, "Song, did you write that all by yourself?" And I'm trying to tune. It was just, oh, I was mortified. But when I finally got the guitar in tune and I started to sing, you could have heard a pin drop. And by the end of that 3 minutes of me doing original song, everybody was just so happy. You know how you're seeing somebody fumble and it's awkward and feeling kind of sad, but all of a sudden they pull it out. Well, I pulled it out. And then the next year I ended up leaving North Hollywood and going to Hoover High School in Glendale. And when they had their talent show, it was not only it was not only about Hoover High School, but Glendale High School and Burbank High School. Collectively, we had one talent show where we were going to, all compete against each other. And when all was said and done, I won the entire city event with the song that I wrote, I'm Gonna Miss You. So that's when I kind of knew that, there might be a future in this based on the kind of response I was getting. So it's a little bit verbose about the question you asked me, but it's a fun story.
No, but and then to finish the story, which I like too, you knew that music was for you. I think you told me, right, that after you sang somewhere or in school one time, then a girl came up to you afterward.
Oh, I was in sixth grade. This is the very first
Oh,
time I knew I
even
wanted to.
before,
I
right.
was I was sixth grade and I went up to one of my teachers and I said I play guitar and sing, and my teacher invited me to get up in front of my class. But what she did was she invited the entire sixth grade to come into the classroom to hear me sing, and I sang "Blowing in the Wind" by Bob Dylan. And I'll never forget, I did the thing. I did, and I'm sixth grade. I'm like 12 years old. Did the song. And the very next day, I'm having lunch and I was sitting at a table all by myself. I can still see it right now. And the prettiest girl in school walked up to me and she says, "Hey, can I sit and have lunch with you?" I knew at that point it was going to be something I was going to pursue.
So music was both in terms of picking up the women and then later eventually getting paid
Well,
for this as a
if,
waiter.
if
Um,
you ask most guys why they learned how to play guitar, the majority's going to tell them to meet girls.
and did it
I'm
work?
no, I'm no exception.
Did it work?
Oh, it did work.
It did. Okay. I wish I'd known that. I played as a kid, I played the trumpet. It wasn't quite the same thing.
Well, it just depends on how cool you are, but girls and guitars, yeah. Hey, listen, it's like you know, grits and what is it? Biscuits and gravy. They just go
Well,
together.
I'm telling you, I'm sorry I didn't meet you before because I would have known, forget the trumpet, but guitar would have been my road to success. But women were women weren't dying to meet trumpet players. What can I tell you? So I love these stories. So go from, and by the way, someday you should write these down, or have you ever written these stories down?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, that's where I get my fodder and that's where I get my
The
inspiration.
songs, but I mean, just to read
My
them are
story.
great. So go back. So you get fired from a high school gig, or you're the waiter. You get fired from that gig. Fast forward to your career, then what eventually got you into playing on a full-time basis?
Well, throughout my entire 20s, I had the band, the John Michaels Band, and I would play up and down the West Coast. But what I did was I was playing originals. I was trying to get a record deal, and I was just out there, and I wanted to be out there doing my own stuff. I wasn't into top 40. I never really was in a top 40 band, though I did get together at some restaurants on occasion, and I would, do old, James Taylor, Beatles, things like that. But the majority of my background is always doing my own thing. And so throughout my 20s, I had the John Michaels Band, and I would work during the day, and I was a securities broker, investments, and I got my license. And so I would do that. And then at night, I'd go out and play. And then eventually, when I hit about 30, I made a pilgrimage to Nashville. I had not been there, and I was really kind of under the impression that Nashville was more kind of like that hee haw or what they presented in hee haw. And it just wasn't really my kind of thing. But when I got to Nashville for 1 week and I started going around, it was an eye-opening, life-changing experience. And I literally there were places to play on every block where they would have these guitar pools. And there'd be four, five, six people with their guitars, and they'd each be taking turns singing their songs, their originals. And I mean, I saw people that had written songs for Barbra Streisand and Barry Manilow and Rod Stewart and just some of the biggest songs that you'd ever heard. And you're just hearing it in a very raw, visceral way, organic, with just the guitar and the story behind it. And it was captivating. And I ultimately moved from LA to Nashville and spent 17, 18 years in Nashville learning the craft of songwriting. And it was just an incredible experience.
So in terms of songwriting, are you the kind of guy who sits down every morning and gets up at 7 o'clock in the morning and then just writes for a couple hours, or how do you write your songs?
Well, there is that when you get to Nashville, it is treated like a job, and you make appointments. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on in Nashville, and you get together with this collaborator. One day it might be with one person, and the next day with another person, and then you get a publishing deal, and then they're setting you up to write with different people, and you get together and you sit in a room and you talk about stories and what happened to you on the way to the writing session, or what happened to you on the date you had last night, or what your mother or dad or whatever it is. And just by talking, you might come up with an idea. Or maybe somebody says, hey, so and so's looking for a song. Maybe we should write something for them. And that's how the thing works. And then you sit there and you try to craft an idea. And that's how the process works. So when I was in Nashville, yes, I wrote. I tried to write every day. I didn't because I still had to have a job and work, and so I didn't write every day as much as I would have liked to. But I still wrote enough, and I learned to write well. I learned to write above the fray because songwriting is king, and good songs are what get you noticed, and mediocrity does not rise to the top. And so if you're going to be in Nashville and you're going to write, you have to write well, you have to come up with unique ideas, and you have to come up with some really cool stories and melodies and things, and that's what I did.
What comes first, the melody or the song?
Well, it's like the chicken or the egg. I mean, let's just call it like it is. There have songs that I was inspired by a chord that I played on the guitar, and I just went, "Wow, that really has a unique sound to it. I'd like to build something around it." And after I build something around that chord, a melody, a pass, just a whole phrase of music that speaks to you. And then after you've got this melody idea, you're thinking to yourself, well, what is it asking? Is it looking for something dark and mysterious, or is it happy and make you feel good kind of melody, kind of groove, kind of thing? Then there are some times where you can have a thought or an experience and you write about that experience. And I'll give you an example. I was at a cafe one night um, having dinner with a girl that I had just been on. This was the very first date, and we were talking. And I mean, literally, I was having a hard time remembering her name. And I was just waiting for her to say her name so I didn't have to ask her what her name was again. But I remember we were talking and just having a nice conversation. It's about 11:30 at night. And out of the blue, she just leans in. We're sitting at a coffee table. She leans in and she says, I just want you to know one thing. Before I ever sleep with you or any man, we're going to have to be married. And she leaned back and waited for my reply, and it was right then and there. I just went, check, please. And she and I started to laugh. And I remember I left that night, and I was thinking about how funny that was. The very next night, I went out with some buddies of mine, and I was telling them what had happened in the date the night before. And one of my buddies said, you should write that. And I said, I'm going to go home and try. So I went home and I pulled up the guitar and it's called stream of consciousness, just whatever flows out of you. And I just started playing this one chord and this idea. And then this was what came out of me, literally stream of conscious. The first verse was, sitting in a cafe talking to a lady, having a discussion about sex. In her early 30s, she was talking kind of dirty. I was totally excited, but a nervous wreck. When she told me that before we'd ever get to the mat, I'd have to walk her to the altar. What I think about that. Check, please. Quickly. How much do I owe? It's time for me to go. What she wants to do ain't on the menu. So, hey, Mater D, snap 1, 2, 3. Check, please. And that just came out at one time. So, to answer your question, it just depends. And the universe will give it to you in different ways.
That song, so great, great song, but what's great about it is the story behind it. It's just
Yeah, that was the fun part.
and the question I want to know though, so did you ever go out with this woman again?
I've been asked that a lot. And she gets to call herself the check please girl. But no, we never did go out after that.
Okay, great story. Let me ask you another question before I get to the current song I want to talk about. But the other question is, what comes first? Or does one come first, the song or the title, or is it, do they ever come at the same time or separately?
Oh my gosh, there's been many times where we've written a song and we didn't know what we were going to call. Oh, what do you want to call it? I don't know. What do you want to call it? And so again, it just all happens. Do you know, it's the kind of thing like Yesterday. Do you know the story about Paul McCartney's Yesterday?
I may have
You know,
heard it, but go ahead.
he woke up and he had a dream, and the melody was his dream of that song. And he went around asking, he asked John and he asked Ringo and George and he asked some other friends, "Have you ever heard this melody?" And he would play the melody on the guitar. And they said, "No, Paul, we don't know the song." And the lyrics that Paul was using over that melody was scrambled eggs, right? And so what the point is that to of your question, the titles and things, he didn't even know it was going to be called when he had the melody. So again, in writing, yes, we're going to be talking about a song, and the title that this particular song that has brought the two of us together is called "Let the People Who Love You Love You." Now that is a song that I have the title first, and then I built the song around the title.
By the way, can I just interject here? I like the title definitely more than scrambled eggs. So
Yes.
I'm glad you didn't go with scrambled eggs. But let's now, since you mentioned it, how I met you, I guess, through a mutual friend, Edie Weinstein, and she told me about the song. And why don't you give the introduction to the song then, John? How did it come about?
Well, I was diagnosed with throat cancer, and the doctor told me, he said, "Look, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we're going to get you through this cancer. We're going to save you. The bad news is, of all the cancer treatments that are out there, this is the hardest. It's going to be very difficult for you to get through." And how do you process something like that? Next to terminal cancer, how do you process that you're about to go through a battle that's going to be very difficult? And I was angry. I was going through a whole myriad of emotions, if you will. And somehow I ended up connecting with Edie. We had met a couple times when I was singing at the Gilda's Club in Pennsylvania and Bucks County up in that area. And we stayed connected on social media, and somehow we connected with each other. And it was during this time, I guess I was seeking some spiritual guidance, and I was talking to Edie, and I was telling her that I was pretty angry and I don't know, just going through a whole. I was just really, it was difficult. And the thought, the term thoughts and prayers, and I made some sort of snarky remark. Oh, great! I'm sure everybody will want to give me more thoughts and prayers. And Edie just said in our conversation, John, you got to let the people that love you love you. And that kind of just, I thought it was a very profound statement, and I'd never really heard it that way. And as I went through my treatment and my recovery, and I looked out the window on different days, and I would see people, strangers, mowing my lawn and dropping food off, and I would read stuff on internet, on social media about me and my condition and how people were praying for me and prayer chains, right? And just people, strangers, reaching out to me and telling me that they're thinking of me, and it literally brought tears to my eyes. And so I knew that when I was able to sing again and perform again, I wanted to write something to say thank you to the doctors and the nurses. And I'll give a shout out, Dr. King and Dr. Elganidi, um, two very, very important people that got me through this. My brother-in-law, Mitch Newman, he would call me literally every day after he knew that I had this big lump in my throat going, "Have you gone to go get a check yet?" And then, of course, my wife and my daughter, Jennings, just people rallying around me to get my butt to the hospital and get these tests done, which ultimately came back positive for cancer. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody, and I wanted to do it in a way that I knew how to do it in a very special way. And I wanted to write something. So I started to write the song, and then I have a collaborator named Paul Jefferson, and Paul and I are kind of like Bernie Taupin and Elton John together. He's my Bernie Taupin, I'm his Elton John. And we sat down and We actually did it via, FaceTime kind of thing. And we eventually came up with what we have now. And I went to Nashville and I hooked up with a wonderful producer, Jim Kimball. And Jim, he produced a wonderful track. And the song is called Let the People Who Love You Love You. And it's about opening up and letting the people that are around you in to help you get through what is a very difficult journey.
What I love about the track too, which I'm going to put on the air in just a second, is that people can actually see the words along as you're
Yeah,
singing them.
I created a lyric video, if you will, just very simple that people could see the lyrics. So I guess this would be a perfect opportunity to go ahead and push play.
Okay, so give me a second here. We're going to see if we can do this, and I think we can. This is Blaine Greenfield on the Blaine's World webcast, and I'm here with my guest, John Michaels, and we're going to be watching and hopefully seeing in just a second his latest song. And I'll share it. And can you see this, John?
I can.
Great, and here we go.
I've got bad news and good news. The doctor said it's cancer, and I swear it took my breath. And with my wife holding my hand, he said, you can be saved. We'll take care of the science. You take care of the faith. Let the people who love you love you. Let the people who care. Don't try to stop them. Just take it all in. Every thought and prayer. Children of God are calling. Your tears tell you they're true. So let the people who love you like a soldier surrounded, losing hope. The battle was raging, taking its toll. Then on my mirror I found a note. Daddy, God's not through with you. It remains there to remind me just what love can do. Let the people who love you love you. Let the people who care. Don't try to stop them. Just take it all in. Every thought and prayer. Children of God are calling.
Man, that was good, John.
Thank you.
Back.
I'm really proud of it.
Well, you should be. I should just tell you that you should be grateful also about a fact that nobody could hear me singing along with it because that would have ruined it, man. But wow, that is a phenomenal song. Way to go.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
really loved it. Have you performed it anywhere yet?
Yes, I have performed it, and interestingly enough, the very first time I performed it, I got a standing ovation for that song, and I knew that it was touching people. And it's not just a song; it's about people that think about their loved ones and the people that are in their lives. And so many of us have had cancer, and it's just a very powerful statement that we have to let we can't do it alone. And I think that, I thank Edie for such a beautiful, it wasn't done intentionally to give me an idea. It was just a conversation that we were having that sparked a particular line. And but it was a beautiful line. And I think Paul and I did a wonderful job. I think Jim produced a phenomenal track. I think for considering that I had 35 days straight of radiation and chemo, I sounded pretty good singing, considering it was throat cancer. And I just hope that this song will be heard and sing. I don't know what's going to happen, what the universe has in store, but there's been a lot of magic behind this song. So I'm hoping that the universe has plans with it, you know?
By the way, also had compliment too. The was Jim the guy who also played the sax?
No, Jim
No,
Kimball is the producer, but Jim Hoke
yeah,
and in the middle of that lyric you saw that I had put the
right.
Jim Hoke let me put it to you this way. Blaine, if you could blow a saxophone like Jim does, you would have had just as many girls as I have.
I'm thinking that, but I'm loving that saxophone and wow, and you're giving me ideas, but it's too late. I don't want to start picking up the saxophone or the guitar now based on what you're telling me here. But I'll
Next
leave,
slide.
yeah, next life. I'll leave you one other thought though, man, and I mean this. I don't know if you take me up on this, but let's get you on America's Got Talent. You know,
Well, no, I've been told a few times, but you know what? I'm at my age. I don't know if that's going to happen. But you're not the first that has said that. But I will just say that at this point, the song is out there and we're having these kind of conversations, you and me. And I just hope that the right people that need to hear this will hear it. Ultimately, I would love to marry this song with Cancer Society's campaigning because I think that it would be a great backdrop for different campaigns that are out there trying to fundraise. The song makes people cry. The song is very moving. It's also very listenable. It's also easy to follow. It's not so dark, that because you think, oh my gosh, a song about cancer. It's not. It's a very uplifting, powerful song. And maybe I shouldn't be saying it myself, but that's how I believe the song speaks to you. It's very
well,
powerful.
and to agree with you, I mean, speaking to me the same way, I'm getting a chill, just having heard it now a couple of times and speaking to you, you did a phenomenal job. Let me ask you this, wrapping this up, um, John, in terms of where you go from here, what do you see in the future, both with the song and 5 years from now?
Well, as I mentioned, I would like to see this song find many homes with many campaigns where it can be used by different organizations, whether it's American Cancer Society or different programs like that. I just feel that music speaks to people. And sometimes music can help motivate people and encourage people and move people. And that's what I believe this song is. And I hope that through efforts like what you have done, provide me to be on your podcast, and others that Edie has done to introduce me to, that eventually the song will find its legs and take off. That's what I'm hoping. I'm a father, and this is one of my children, and I'm hoping that it will have its point. Check Please was fun for what it was, but this song it's a different time in my life, and it's as a baby boomer, you're a baby boomer. It's a very, very timely and timeless song. And hopefully 100 years from now, a song like this, we won't have cancer. But for right now, I think it's a song that we all need.
If folks want to get in touch with John Michaels and find out what you're up to, what's the best bet?
First off, you can find out by going to johnmichaelsmusic.com, and it's JONMICHAELS music.com. You can actually Google John Michaels and a lot of stuff will come up. So that's one way. And I'm not doing any touring right now or anything of that nature. So if you live in South Carolina where I'm at, occasionally you might see me play. I would, though, like to put it out there that I'd like to start doing some keynote speaking where I would speak about my journey in cancer, but use music as well as my talking to convey and talk about my journey. I've been playing since I was 10, so I'm a pretty good player and I'm a good storyteller. And then I have some really powerful songs to go along with them.
Well, I'd like to, again, thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World webcast. Also, I agree with what you just said. I love your stories. I love your music. And I wish you the very best. But thanks, man. This was great.
Well, listen, it was a pleasure. I wish you all the best and have a great Merry Christmas since we're filming this before Christmas. But whenever you see it, thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Okay. I also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And hopefully someday we'll actually bump into each other, if not in South Carolina. If you're up in Bucks County, again, my old stomping grounds. That was great, man. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.